Hey guys, welcome back to RMA Garage. I'm Mark and I'm glad you joined us today. Am I excited because this is kind of a new era in YouTubing. I have over 1,000 subscribers and I met all the criteria to be monetized. So I have a chance to make my pennies and my dollars and my hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, millions. Well, not yet, but we're getting there. Okay guys, so what are we doing in this video? We are going to be doing dirt bike maintenance. Now I have already done mine. It is 100% done. Beautiful, clean, ready to go. But on my son's bike, he has a 2015 YZ250FX. We're going to be taking apart this bike bit by bit. And the goal of this series is going to basically be showing you all the maintenance items in each individual video. So you can kind of do a library of it. If you're working on something, you can just go to the video. Before, I did a bunch of this stuff and it was one long video and it was kind of crammed together. It was kind of hard to index. So this is going to be little smaller videos on basically setting up the bike, taking the plastics apart, doing each individual step as one individual video, just so you guys can, if you want to take something apart or fix something, as I did in the beginning, it was a little stressful because I didn't know what to do and I didn't want to mess anything up. We're basically going to walk through the entire bike in the next series of videos, probably going to be a dozen or two or even more videos just to kind of get us through the winter because it is been cold and wet. So anyway, guys, hope you will continue watching us through the series and let's get to it. So you just heard me say, let's get to it. Well, I did, and I got a lot of work done on this bike, but the video was lost. Can't believe I did that. It's in history, no recording. So what did I do? Well, took off the seat, took off the airbox cover, took off the front fender, took off the number plate, side panels, and that was about it. I also showed you how to make this really cool board to put all your fasteners in. You take a hole punch and you punch a hole in the back and you stick them in there. And there was a really great explanation that I gave that I don't remember at the moment. Can't believe I did that. Really, you didn't miss anything yet, because I still haven't taken the front wheel off, the rear wheel, the exhaust, and a few other little bits and pieces along the way. So we're still going to get to that, but the rest of the video is going to be even better. So let's really get to it. Okay, so the next step here, we're getting a little bit closer to the bike so I can show you some things. We want to take these plastic pieces off, and there's 3 bolts here that have hex head, socket head fasteners. And as you can see, to get this one out, I mean, you can get an Allen wrench in there, but it's just you're gonna knock your knuckles forever here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the front tire off. So the way I normally do that is I'll loosen up, these are number 10s. The torque spec on these aren't very much. I think don't quote me on this, I think they're 15 pounds. Okay, so we loosen that up. And you really don't have to loosen those up first, but I always do. Whew. This bike hasn't been taken apart in a while. Okay. Once it loosens, it pretty much comes off. And then these are basically just pinch bolts, pinching the axle. So we had to leave these on because when we go to take this off, it wants to rotate. So technically you can leave these tightened up and you can spin the nut off, but I always like to release that just in case there's a little bit of tension there. I don't know. Tell me if I'm crazy or not. Okay, so that's that. So now what we do is we got to get this axle out of here. And what I do is I just take the 10 mil socket, and being that we're we're dealing with a lot of aluminum on these dirt bikes. I always like to use a rubber mallet. So in case if I miss, it's not going to damage anything. Okay. Okay. So now we can take this out. And the wheel comes right out. So that's it. There really is nothing too crazy about doing that. Sometimes these get very stubborn. Hopefully they will not be today. Make sure they're completely, totally in. Nope. You do not want to over tighten these. I've had over tightened them before and it takes forever to get them out. And you're dealing with a fork because these are screwed right into the fork. You do not want to have to get one of these loose from after being in a fork. I've never had to drill one out, never had to have any issues with that, but boy, I tell you what though, that could be a problem. So you always do not over tighten these. As you can see, this is a whole lot easier when the wheel was not on. Okay. And he rode this a little wet. There's a little bit of grease. I don't know if that's fork oil or not, but we're going to go over these completely and get them nice and clean. And this one's loose. We just have to get these fasteners off here, which these are number 8. So this is going to be in 2 pieces, and this is going to need to be cleaned. There's dirt on it, but for now, what I normally do is I have a bucket that I use for these little pieces and parts. I always put the fasteners back in, so I know what fasteners go with which. Okay, so the next step is going to be removing the exhaust. Now, if you can see back here, this here would be the header pipe. This goes into the cylinder head, and then the first connection is going to be right here. So I'm not going to use the electric ratchet because, I don't know, the torque specs on these bolts really aren't that high. And I don't know, I just kind of like to just feel it with my hands instead of letting the impact or the electric ratchet do it, because if it binds, if it kinks, I want to feel that. I want to be able to make sure that I don't bend anything, because this is light sheet metal. It's pressed sheet metal, and I just don't. If I grab something, if I accidentally do something, these parts are expensive, and you know, I just more or less, the mechanic in me would rather just kind of feel on how this all comes apart. So, okay, so we got this band off. Now we're not going to take this off completely. We're just going to leave it loose. And now we'll go on to, there's another bolt. I don't know if you guys can see that back down in here. We have to get that one. And again, I just don't want to all of a sudden take an impact and loosen this and have it grab. I know this is a lot slower and it's not as efficient, but I can tell and see If there's any issues, I can hear if there's any issues and problems. Well, this one we are going to want to completely take out. Okay. Okay, so now we have another one of these bolts. Again, it's a little clamp. So this is the second part of that pipe on the other side, and then of course this is the muffler. So this one's not, the torque spec on that's not very high. We're just going to loosen this up just a little bit. Not going to take it off. Now that's nice and loose. Okay. Now these other bolts, these have a bit of a higher torque spec. No, that one wasn't very tight, so that one we're going to completely take off. Okay, that's a number 10. And then this is what's holding the rest of the mess on. This last bolt here. Okay, once you take this off, the whole thing is going to be completely loose. So you got to support this with your hand. And what you're going to do is just basically just give it a jiggle. It's coming. So we just, boom, there we go. And the clamp's gonna fall off. Maybe, yep, we lost the clamp. Okay, so there you go. That's the whole muffler assembly complete. And I'll probably just take this clamp and put it in the box so it doesn't get lost. Okay, so this now, you can see the other side of that bolt. Okay, so there, that was where the bolt was attached to. So you have this whole assembly. What you have to do is you have to wiggle and go forward with it. Okay, now it's completely loose. What you have to do is you gotta kind of have to go around like so, and then it'll come completely off. And as you can see, again, this is, you know, probably 20 gauge sheet metal. I don't know what this stuff's made out of. But you don't want, I don't like to use impacts using this because if it grabs, that power of that impact could twist these clamps, and I don't want to risk damaging a clamp. Okay, so that's the exhaust. All right, we're continuing on with the plastics, things that are, I guess you could say, non-mechanical. Rear mud flap. All right, guys, so before we get too much further into this disassembly, did I say disassembly? Disassembly. We want to take the battery out because we're going to be taking the rear fender off. And with taking the rear fender off, you're going to be messing with some of the electric and doing some of that. So I always like to take the battery out at this point just in case I don't bump a wire that has electricity going through it. I don't want to damage anything. This bike's going to be unplugged for probably a few weeks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the leads back on, and I'm going to plug the battery into the battery tender even though it's not connected to the bike. This is going to allow me to still keep the battery on a maintenance. And this is just, again, protecting a battery investment. Batteries are expensive. We use the original OEM batteries. That's just the way I am. So now, battery should just lift right out. There we go. So now we got the battery, and this is a new battery too, because we had an issue with, we had a no start situation a while back. We had to buy a new battery. So this is brand new. So we're going to put this back on tender so it remains charged. So now we're going to be taking off the rear fender, and there are 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Once you take the fender off, then there are 4 more bolts that are holding on the electrics package. So what I like to do is I like to take those off first, because the weight of the fender is pulling down and you're trying to get everything off of it. So I've made that mistake many times, and it's no fun because now your fender is just hanging there and you're trying to support it while getting these fasteners off. So you want to take these little 8 mils out first. Okay, so I want to show you guys something here, if the gimbal will move. Okay, so let's see if I can show you guys what's going on here. Okay, you see, here's the battery box. Okay, this is and it's really light gauge sheet metal. This is what holds the battery into place. Okay, we just took that fastener out and we took this fastener out. I don't know if you guys can see that. There you go. That fastener. It's a welded nut onto the piece of sheet metal. The other 2, there's one right here, which you can't see because the frame's in the way, but maybe you guys can see it here. Okay, so there's this one and this one. Now what happened was I started to unscrew it, and you see how, let's see if you can see what's going on here. You see how this crooked? Let me see if I can zoom up. You see how this is not straight? This is now at an angle. It's supposed to be like this, but now it's like this. And what happens is that fastener was tight, too tight, and this sheet metal is so thin that it started to twist, okay? So what I'm going to have to do is, while I am unscrewing from the bottom, I'm going to have to hold this piece of sheet metal so it doesn't completely twist and ruin the battery box. So something that you guys have to be careful with. I've actually deformed this before, and I just noticed it starting to spin and I stopped myself. So now we're going to have to be extremely careful with that. Okay, so what I've gone to is a shorter extension. I've gotten rid of the electric ratchet because that's what's given us a fit. That's what grabbed it and twisted it the first time. So we're going to have to, so I'm tightening it back up to get it straight. I'm going to put a pair of pliers in here now, and hopefully with any amount of success I should be able to hold this. Oh, there we go. So I'm holding the sheet metal in place from the top side, and I'm putting as much pressure as I need to get this to loosen up without, there we go. All right, so now when we take this out, we take these out, now they'll just come right out now. So it's these little things that I'm trying to help you guys out with. Because I've had to completely, totally fix the battery box because I've twisted into a horrible mess. Let's start with these on the side. Okay, we're going to get that same bolt on this side, just opposite. Okay, so now these remaining bolts here, they're just into the frame. So those can be, we can use the electric ratchet and not have any concerns of twisting. Okay, so now this whole fender assembly, which we'll back up here a little bit and show you guys. This whole thing will slide out. Perfect. Now, the only other attachment to this are there's two little Phillips head screws right here that you can't get to until the fender's out, which it's no big deal to just back these out. No issues whatsoever. One thing I want to show you is that there are some aluminum grommets on here that keep the fender from being crushed. These will fall out over time, and especially if I'm at the sink cleaning, these will fall out, and you don't want these going down the drain. Okay, now these are actually in there pretty good. These four, in my rear fender, these have always been very stout. There's another grommet there, and another grommet here, but that's threaded. These typically don't come out as well. They're in there pretty tight. So now now we have the aluminum. I took one, actually fell out already, so these are the other three. So now we've got the fender off. So the last thing we're going to do is take the rear tire off and then set it out of the way, because that only gets in the way of doing things. So we're going to take the nut off. This is really simple. There really isn't any adjustment on this. So I'll show you guys how to put it back on when we're ready. But there's a little trick. And again, I could be using a ratchet, but quite honestly, I don't want the microphones getting too overwhelmed. But this really isn't much at all. You take that off. This will push out, actually. So we got the axle out. And all we're going to do is push it forward a little bit. And then we're going to take the chain off. And then this will slide back, and you just kind of have to wiggle past the brake caliper. And that's it. Ooh. Okay, there you go. The rear tire's off. Okay guys, so we have the bike completely torn apart. We've got all of our plastics over here. And if the camera pans over, this is kind of funny. Anyway, I got a pile of plastics here that we're going to clean up a little bit. They're not so dirty. But we've got the bike completely torn apart. We've got both tires off. It's relatively clean, so we don't have to spend a ton of time cleaning the stuff. I mean, there's really no secret in all of that. But basically taking things apart, inspecting them, and cleaning them with the appropriate cleaner. All the electric parts, we're going to take all the plugs off. We're going to take the brakes apart. We're going to remove some of the bracing on the bike. We got to clean the air cleaner, the air filter. We're going to do throttle linkage. We're going to check valve clearances, take the gas tank off, show you how to do that. That can sometimes be a bit of a problem. But here is our fastener board. So as you can see here, I've got them all organized. Let's see if I can get this. Fender, seat, side panels, airbox, side panel, number plate, fork guards, exhaust, rear mud flap. This is going to be battery box. This is rear fender, or no, I'm sorry, battery box and rear fender. So we have all the fasteners here that are on the bike, that all the things we took off. And then I have a container full of the axles and a few other bits and pieces here that we have. And I've got my list of things to do. I've got my manual. We're going to be going over all of this, and I'll be showing you guys how I do things and how I maintenance my bike. So this is going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. You guys are going to learn a lot, and I'm going to get my bike cleaned for next year. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for the subscriptions. I hope this content's meaningful to you. Leave comments below, ask questions, ask me to do something. If I need to go over something else, I will do that. So we appreciate all the support and the love. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.